Well, our developing news for you this morning, and the Rafah crossing, that's the Egypt-Gaza border, does appear now to be open. We've seen desperately needed aid trucks heading in, making their way to civilians in the besieged Strip. This is the scene this morning. You can see a little bit of movement. It is a slow process, it has to be said. Charlie Peters is in Tel Aviv for us. I mean, this is a significant move, isn't it, Charlie?
It is, and it follows extensive international diplomacy, particularly by the US in Cairo and in Jerusalem, to try and establish the opening of that humanitarian border crossing. Finally, it appears that some 20 trucks have now gone in, but it will really only scratch the surface of what's needed, according to the international observers on the ground, in particular the UN. This is also a significant step for the aid agencies, because the UN has reported that some 16 workers of the Relief Works Agency, which is their agency within Gaza and indeed the West Bank, have been killed by what they describe as Israeli strikes on the Gaza Strip since this war started. At least 3 of those killed UN workers were members of the support staff there, so potentially engaging in the distribution of aid. This does reflect how it is a dangerous and very unstable situation there. So the aid finally arriving for the best part of 2 million people across the Gaza Strip who do need that aid amid a deteriorating humanitarian situation. The blockade by Israel and Egypt preventing water, food and electricity from arriving as this war escalates. But of the 20 trucks, we understand that inside them will be medical supplies, medical equipment and food. Hospitals in the Gaza Strip, and there are approximately 26 operating throughout the territory, have been running on fuel and generators since the blockade cut off electricity supplies. There have been repeated reports from many of those hospitals that they are unable to continue with their work. We've seen footage of doctors claiming that they are using local supplies from shops in order to continue their urgent medical work, as the casualties stretch into the thousands in the Gaza Strip. But this aid will, it's intended, support those medical workers, but also the many people that have no access to food and water on the ground. That food is likely to be high-powered biscuits. The UN distributes them around the world. They're a way of giving people urgent vitamins and minerals in a small dose of food. So it's a maximum impact delivery from the UN. And we wait to see further reports if more aid is able to cross, because, as observers have said, 20 trucks for 2 million people, it's really not ideal. They need as much aid as possible. Israel is concerned that whatever aid goes in could end up in the hands of Hamas. There have been reports of people taking from UN compounds in the Gaza Strip. We haven't been able to confirm those reports, but it is a precarious situation from a security perspective, especially security of food and aid amid this rapidly declining humanitarian situation.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Yes, absolutely.
I was just going to say that
we're showing pictures of the moment of somewhere. We're told it may be the Egypt-Gaza border.
Well, I think this is the original shot.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
So actually, this explosion, they've panned the camera around. This, whether it's a rocket attack or what, we don't know. But that actually could be in northern Gaza. It could be quite a long distance away. It's very hard to tell without sort of looking at this on a map, but this could actually be in the northern part of Gaza, where we know, as Charlie was saying, those attacks are still going on. Let's see, does Charlie want to come back with something? Let's see if Charlie's might have something, because there's the border.
That's the border, yes, we're watching at the moment.
So that is on the southern side, so that could be further to the, certainly further to the east, possibly to the north. Charlie, have you got more detail on that?
Yeah, well, as the conversation continues on the Rafah border crossing, we are hearing in the last few minutes that the US intelligence community understands that Iran's position in the region is not to engage in a direct confrontation with Israel, but rather to support its proxies. So that's another urgent situation developing here. As the humanitarian aid goes in, there is some, I suppose, mildly reassuring information coming in from sources in the US that they do not wish to engage in a direct conflict with the US. We do know that what happens in the humanitarian situation in Gaza will almost certainly affect how Iranian proxies act in the region, because they want that ceasefire and the end to what they describe as Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip. So it'll be interesting to see how the Iranian proxies, particularly Hamas and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, react to the news of this border crossing. Will they continue to ramp up their attacks on northern Israel, as we've seen in the last 48 hours, or will there be a reduction in their strikes on the territory? We've also seen, as reported in the last few days, attacks on US forces, almost certainly conducted by Iranian proxies in Iraq and Syria. They've claimed responsibility for drone missile attacks on those troops, and missiles intercepted from the Yemen-based Houthi militia, which is supported by Iran, but we don't know if they are being directed by Tehran. So an escalating situation, of course, throughout the region with regards to how Iran is kind of posturing its forces. But the interesting question will be now, is this humanitarian update going to affect how those proxies act, as we hear reports that the US understands that Iran is not seeking a direct confrontation with US forces?
Yeah, that's an interesting move, actually. OK, Charlie, thank you.
Yes, that any step forward is going to provoke somebody somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a constant dilemma with this, isn't it? But you do get an inkling, you do get a sort of sense with some of this happening, with the release of 2 hostages, with this aid moving through. Now, as Charlie says, Iran not wanting direct involvement. Are things edging very slowly in the right direction? It's too early to tell, but I suppose you can but have some hope.
You can only wish, can't you?